Good afternoon. I'm out here on a Saturday afternoon in late January, northern Michigan, and I'm about to replace the pump on my 2006 Honda Odyssey. First things first, gotta pop the hood. Next thing you'll need to do is remove the plastic cover. Get that out of your way. If you just take a screwdriver and turn these, this should come right up. Go ahead and get that out of your way. And right here you'll see the power steering pump. That's the pulley there. And then the pump. Now that's looking a little oily there. Got a slight leak somewhere in there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a 19 millimeter socket and a breaker bar. And we're going to, let me see if I can get a good view of that down there. There is a solid, what looks like a nut down there. See if I can point at it. That's a tough angle to get at. There's a tensioner down there. You can see it. It's a hard thing to get a video of, but it's way down in there. So once you get your bar on the tensioner, you're gonna want to give that a push. Just a firm push, and that will ease forward as you push on that. It's hydraulic, so it might take a little bit, but just keep some pressure on there until that belt loosens up and you can slip that off. I'm doing this solo, so I'm going to have to set the camera down and pull that belt off. But I'll show you here. If I release it, I don't know if you can see that, but that moved back. So give that a good firm push and let that tension ease off of there. And then reach over and slide that belt off the top. That serpentine belt, just slide it right off the top pulley there. Something else I would recommend is that once you get that belt off of that pulley there, is to swing the belt over this way and try to hook it up somewhere. Maybe you could use a zip tie and hook it onto something there. That way it's not falling down, and it will save you some time later so you don't have to reroute that belt. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move this clip up and get this hose off. Get that out of the way, and then I'm going to remove the bolts and get the pump out of there. So go ahead and take some, I just like to use pliers on these. If you have, just take some regular pliers, get that up out of your way, and then let's work this up and out of there. When you do get this slid off, I'm guessing this is probably going to want to start dripping fluid down there, so you want to get that hose up higher than your fluid level there as soon as you can, so you're not dripping fluid. One thing we could do is we could probably go ahead and put a rag under that. I'm going to do that so I don't drip fluid all the way down in there on the timing belt cover and everything. So I did go ahead and I put some handy sales flyers under there to hopefully keep from making too much of a mess. But my plan is once I get that hose off there, I'll lift it up out of the way and probably try to stick it up on that side of the hose to keep it from folding back down and dripping out. Next, I'm going to remove the two bolts that are holding the pump in. You can see I've got my wrench on a bolt down there. I'll hold it there for a second, and then there's also going to be another bolt right up here. You remove those two bolts and the pump will be free. Then we'll remove the upper hose, get that out of the way. Then we should be all set to get our pump swapped over. For the bolt back here, I'm going to be using this wrench here. I tried to put my socket on there, but there just wasn't enough room. So you get that popped loose, and get those bolts out of there. So we got that loose. We should be able to get that out the rest of the way by hand now. In case I didn't mention it, those bolts are 12 millimeters. You'll need a 12 millimeter socket or wrench or whatever you can fit on there. Before I take finish taking that bottom bolt out, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the upper hose. So it looks like we've got two 10 millimeter bolts there. I'm gonna get those loosened up. Then I'll swing that hose up out of the way and we'll get that pump out of there. Okay, so I did go ahead and I got that hose off. That was two 10 millimeter bolts, and I swung it up here just to keep it up out of the way and hopefully keep from dripping too much of that power steering fluid. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that last bolt all the way out down there, and then I'll slide this off and we'll get our pump switched over. So I've got that pump out. We're gonna go ahead and take that inside where it's a little bit warmer and get that pulley switched over to our new pump. So I decided to stay out here and go ahead and get this done. What I've got here, I've got this extension holding the pulley in place while I turn that nut with my wrench. One thing I would know is if your new pump doesn't have this plastic piece here, or whatever that is, make sure you don't break that. My new pump has that piece, so I'm not too concerned. Our new pump here, and I got the pulley off. Got some snow on there. Got to get that cleaned off, but we'll take our pulley, we'll slide that on and get that nut tightened down. So we got our pulley on our new pump, and then I'm gonna go get this tightened down properly, and then we'll get this set in place and get it hooked up. So we've got our pulley tightened down on the pump here, and we're good to go ahead and set that back in place and get the bolts in. I've got both these bolts in place. This bolt here, hand tightened, and the bolt down there, the bottom bolt, I've got that in there, hand tightened. And I'm going to get those tightened up to spec now. The spec for those is 17 pound-feet. Something I'm going to point out here is the O-ring on here. I'm going to go ahead and replace that. That's always a good idea to replace the O-rings. Make sure you have a good seal. If you were swapping out this tube, reusing this tube, then make sure you replace the O-ring that is inside of there, on the inside of that plastic tube. So I got the old O-ring off, and here's our new one. I'm going to go ahead and slide that on. This is the other O-ring that would go around the plastic tube if you were reusing that. So we'll go ahead and we'll slide this O-ring on here, and I'll need both hands, I think. So I've got to set the camera down. Oh no, I got it. There it is. So now that we have that, we're going to remove that cover. We're going to get that bolted down, and then we will remove this cover from here. We'll slide our hose on and get that attached. We'll top off our fluid, get her started up, get her going. I got the two 10 millimeter bolts torqued down. The torque spec for those two bolts is 8 pound-feet. So I removed the plastic cover from that black pipe there, and then I put the hose back on and slid that down. One thing I'm going to point out real quick that I noticed up here is it does look like we're beginning to get some cracking in this hose here. That's one thing you want to keep an eye on. If you're getting cracking, that could be what is leaking here. I'm not sure if it was that or the seal down in there, but that's something I'll have to keep an eye on, and if that looks like it's causing issues, I may have to go in there and replace that hose piece there. So always keep an eye out for things like that. Rubber hoses and stuff, they don't last forever. Now getting that serpentine belt back on there by myself was a little bit of a challenge, but you just got to lean on your bar there. And then what I ended up doing was I got the belt around the bottom side, and then as I pushed on the bar, I was able to slide this top part over, and that's what did it for me. So I've got this hose back on, I've got that hose back on, I've got my belt back on. So I may add a little bit of fluid there, and then we're going to get this thing started up and see how it runs out. So I went ahead and started it up. I got the air work out of the system by turning the wheels back and forth a little bit. And there was a little bit of humming in there, but I got that air worked out. Now it sounds pretty good. And I topped the fluid off again. It did use up a little bit of fluid, putting it into the new pump there. But we should be all set. And actually, come look at that. You can see my hose is leaking there, right in front of me. So that's something I'm going to have to deal with. I'm going to have to get a new hose for that and get that replaced. So to finish off, we'll get our cover back over the top of the engine here. That latch down, and we'll put our tools away and we'll be all set. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, let me know down in the comments. We'll see you again later.